Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Blizzard Watch podcast. I'm your host, Matt Rossi, and with me this week are my two fantastical co-hosts, Liz Harper and Joe Perez. I honestly tried to call them Tyrael and Narelle for a second there. I'm having serious Diablo submersion problems. But yeah, we are doing the podcast. We are not just going to talk about Diablo, I promise you. We have actually got some other stuff to talk about that's pretty interesting. So.
Oh, we're going to spend an hour talking about how I started playing Deus Ex Human Machina again?
Okay, let's do the... No, why didn't you bring that up during the pre-show? I would have totally gone into that one.
That's for next week. Listen, I didn't want to... Listen, subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to our Patreon, listen to the pre-show. Matt's rambles are great. I don't interrupt them very often because they're always fantastic and entertaining.
Okay, but regardless, let's talk about other things. Although I'm sure Diablo 4 stuff will be coming up. But one of the things I wanted to actually talk about was this. Can we talk about the thing in June or July, or is that still embargoed? I thought it was still embargoed, but you put it in your notes, Liz.
Nope, embargo went up this morning.
Okay,
and we posted. We made a post about it.
Okay, Hearthstone Twist. What's the deal? Tell me about this. They got rid of their mercenaries thing. They basically said we're not developing that anymore, and now they're bringing Twist out.
Yeah, they're developing a sort of habit of coming out with new game modes and killing previous game modes. Because yes, Mercenaries is dead, but now there's Hearthstone Twitch coming soon. Twist actually reminds me a lot of the Season of Mastery concept and the seasons we get in Diablo. Because it's okay, this is normal Hearthstone, except with this one weird rule. And in the first season Twist, the rule is that you cannot use any neutral cards. All of your decks have to be all class cards. They can't use neutral cards, which seems like an interesting, fun challenge. And I'm not sure if I'm going to get really into it, but I like the idea that it's mixing it up. It limits the number of sets you can use, and it's going to have wacky rules that just change how you play Hearthstone. And when you get, a game that is this old, Hearthstone has been around for, a while.
It's got to be at least 10 years, doesn't it?
I feel like it is, but I have no sense of time anymore. Time does not work. So I think this is an interesting way to tackle and keep it fresh. Of course, they keep
10 years, by the way.
Card sets. Oh my god. Yeah, okay. They keep releasing card sets and mini sets, so they're always adding more cards. But, this kind of changes the basic rules of the game. So you can do something very different other than just, I have these new cards and I'll add them to my deck. And I think it's going to be pretty fun. The season is probably going to start this month. It's just in beta, and they're going to do their first season, I think, probably this month, which means they're running out of time. So we should theoretically see this coming soon in beta to check it out.
All right, that's actually really interesting because I haven't really heard of much from Hearthstone other than the usual stuff. Expansion coming on clock.
Yeah, new cards here, new cards there. It's pretty predictable.
In terms of stuff that's happening fairly soon, stuff to bring up, LFR for World of Warcraft Dragonflight, LFR Sakarath, the final fight of Aberrus, is live today. As we're recording this, because we're recording it on a Tuesday. So if you're listening to this show and you haven't done LFR Sakarath yet, you can do that. You can go fight them in LFR and see what the fuss is all about, and get to see the story stuff afterwards, which is, for me, the big draw of these kind of fights is to see what happens at the end. That's why I'm into raiding in World of Warcraft. So what do you guys have actually been working on the Aberrus raid way more than I have. I think I went in once. So what do you guys think about it? What do you think about LFR Sakarath finally being out? Have you already killed Sakarath on normal, so you've already seen it, or what's the deal?
We have killed Sakarath on normal. We've cleared normal, which is actually kind of interesting. This raid tier has felt really fast. And I don't know whether I want to call it undertuned, which I've seen going around. It feels like you're not hitting someplace where you're just hitting yourself, hitting your head against a wall for weeks and weeks and weeks.
I don't think it's undertuned. I think what winds up happening is it's suffering from the same problem we have with what's the word I'm looking for here? The second tier curse The second tier of every expansion always starts out with normal, feeling incredibly undertuned, because usually by the time people get there, they're sitting on gear equivalent or in the ballpark of heroic of the tier previously, whether you've done upgrades or world questing or crafting or whatever the case is. And because there are so many ways to get gear in Dragonflight that we've never had before, as well as the upgrade system and everything else that they're putting into there with item upgrading, all the various things you can get from vendors and the way that you can craft stuff and get stuff recrafted, they've made it so that the gear barrier is really not a thing anymore. So when we go into like Aberrus as a heroic previous tier geared group, yeah, we're going to blow through things because the DPS checks aren't going to be that hard for us to hit because we're already got the gear level to get there. The healing checks aren't going to be that hard to hit because we already got the gear to support it. Our tanks won't feel squishy because they've got themselves set up from the previous tier. This happens almost every expansion on the second tier. And this is a conversation that we've been having since, I want to say, Cataclysm, really, where like that second tier always feels weak. And then there's the pendulum swing for the third tier where you get to the third tier of rating and then it feels like they overtune it because of that, and then everything feels a little bit harder until you start to catch up on gear wise. That said, I think mechanically Aberrus is a very good raid, and I'm not saying that lightly. I'm saying that because I think it's just the right number of mechanics. Not all of them are warm fuzzy, and they do take getting used to, but not once have I felt like I'm trying to think how to phrase this. I haven't felt like there were too many mechanics to ever deal with. So.
So you haven't felt like Razagath the first time you saw it, where I'm just like, what is happening now?
Yeah.
Razagath, I wouldn't even say
Starkareth is a pretty busy fight, but
does it
not
have
as
as many
bad as Razagath.
switches? Razagath kept switching stuff, switching to new places, switching different. It's like there's too much going somewhere else in this fight for me. I want to stay in one place for like long enough to do something. So yeah, that's good to know. But since we've brought that up, we now know that patch 10.1.5 is going to be next month on the 11th, July 11th. That's correct? Yes, I am correct.
That is correct. Yes.
So we're now going to get to see the mega dungeon of time traveling and alternate universe hopping, which I'm super excited about. I know Joe is super excited about it. Liz, what are you thinking? You interested? You excited for patch 10.1.5?
I'm both excited and terrified at the same time because Holy Paladins are getting a really serious overhaul this patch. And there are some things that sound like super great, amazing, and there are some things that sound terrible, and I'm not entirely sure how it's going to feel on the balance. Like, all of our holy power heals now have a holy power cost and a mana cost, and I'm just like, why? Why do I now have to keep track of mana and holy power at the same time? And if I don't have both, I can't cast my heals, and it's like, I'm concerned. I'm both optimistic and very worried at the same time, which is it's an odd conflicted feeling to have.
Is this a subtitle on Dragonflight called, World of Warcraft Dragonflight Holy Paladins get a revamp every patch? Is that like there, or just there's a little asterisk somewhere?
We've got like some small things, and we got a couple of things when they revamped Retribution Paladins last patch, but this is a big overhaul and how everything an overhaul in everything. There's like they've moved around the class tree, they've moved around the holy tree and the class tree some. They've rearranged a bunch of things, they've added things, they've removed things, they've removed the base bonus crit chance that Holy Shock has always gotten. So Holy Shock has a significantly reduced crit chance. They've nerfed the crit talent to improve your crit chance, and at the same time our set bonus from Aberrus is completely based on having Holy Shot crits, so this is sort of a backdoor nerf, a big one, to our set bonus. And at the same time they've made Holy Shock and Glimmer of Light way more powerful. You can spread it to more people, it hits harder. Glimmer of Light is going to hit really hard. And we have a new cooldown that, if I'm remembering right, it consumes all of our Glimmer of Lights for like a big immediate heal, which is some AoE that the class needed, but this is like, it's such a significant rework, and it's like, I have no idea how this is going to work when I sit down and actually play it, and it's like nerfs and buffs and nerfs and buffs, and like, where do the scales balance here?
And nerfs and buffs and nerfs and buffs and nerfs and buffs.
So yeah, so it basically feels like they're trying to rebalance it so it's got more AoE effect, but at the cost of the crit bombing type of ability that it had up to this point.
Yeah, I mean, Holy Paladin has leaned very
crit heavy. I mean, I play my alts very vaguely, but crit heavy is.
It's like you don't really spec for crit because you have a lot of it baseline, and
absolutely.
you have a lot of things that trigger off of crit. So yeah, they've really changed the dynamic right in the middle of a raid tier. So I'm not sure, it's going to be July 11th, and I'm gonna log on for raid the next day. And what is that even going to feel like? Am I going to be like terrible? Am I going to be amazing? I have no idea at this point.
Yeah. That's interesting. I have a Holy Paladin alt that I haven't realized I should. So every time Liz talks, I'm like thinking, should I pick the Paladin up again? Should I try again? Maybe I'll like it this time. So we'll find out if that's the case. But also going on, two things I want to mention really fast. First off is that this week, on the 22nd and 23rd, Hearthstone's going to have some Twitch drops. Liz very helpfully put this in the events calendar, which is 9 packs, but you don't got a lot of time to get them. How does one earn these? Just watch Hearthstone on Twitch?
It's a complete general Hearthstone category on Twitch, and oh my gosh, there's a lot of Hearthstone to watch. I think they basically want you to sit down and watch Hearthstone all day.
Yeah. So how many hours do we know? Like how long you have to be watching for?
I do not know off the top of my head.
Okay. I know you're probably looking it up, or
I'm wondering if they're doing the 3 weeks or 3 hours like they're doing with Diablo, which is less than the WoW one, by the way. It is 3 hours. Red message in chat. Yes, predictive possibilities with power. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, congratulations, Joe. You've weirded us all out.
That's what I do.
That's an accomplishment when you're talking to me. But yeah, okay. So 3 hours of watching Hearthstone within 2 days. Really, it's just the 22nd and 23rd. That's it, right?
Yeah, it's a short window.
Yeah, that's not a ton, but 9 packs. So if you're looking for a bunch of cards, Hearthstone's got you hooked up there. Also going on, I think right now, and to July 2nd. Diablo 4 has Twitch drops going on this week as we're speaking. This week as we're recording this is the Druid, and next week is the Barbarian. If I'm following this event thing right.
Yep.
So same deal. Watch Diablo content on Twitch.
3 hours, super easy.
Yeah, especially with Diablo.
Well, it's 3 hours. There are 2 items for each class, and it's 3 hours for the first one, and then 3 hours for the second one. So 6 hours total.
I was actually looking, like, do we know what the Barbarian drops are going to be? Because
it's probably going to be a weapon and a back bling or something like that.
Yeah, all of them are like a weapon and a kind of back cosmetic of some kind.
Okay. Do we know if it's one of the ones in the store or if it's a unique one that just Twitch
they are unique? Though I think the weapons are recolors of other things.
The weapons are, at least the Druid one is definitely a recolor, which is not a bad thing. I'm here for it.
Because I was looking in the various prices of the thing I wanted to get in the Diablo store, and I mean, I totally applaud their decision to make it just cosmetics in the Diablo store, but the cost of getting the thing I wanted was like so much that I was like, my eyes bugged out. I was like, yikes! I know that means I'm old.
I'm putting the picture in our communal chat for Matt for the Barbarian pieces.
Oh yeah, that's not bad.
I'm really curious to see what they do with the Battle Pass coming up, because we know the Battle Pass is going to have cosmetic rewards for the paid track.
Yeah, if you got Ultimate, do you get something automatically when the season starts?
Yeah, you're going to get, if you have the Ultimate Edition, you get the premium paid track, and if you have the Deluxe Edition, you get the normal paid track.
Okay. Well, I got Ultimate because somebody was very nice and got it for me. So
I will probably be that person that buys it and makes time because I'm having a ton of fun in Diablo. Although I will say, while we're on Diablo 4, do you know about the Druid / Barbarian weapon drop bug that's going on currently?
Yeah, I was going to talk about it a little bit later.
Okay.
But yeah, I do know about it. and I'm sorry on behalf of barbarians. We didn't mean to do that. We wanted those drops for ourselves. We didn't want them for you.
I wanted those drops for you as well.
While we're talking about that, we've covered the two Twitch situations. We should talk about two things happening on the 22nd, which is, again, this 2 days from now as we're recording this. So yesterday, as you're listening to it, we're going to get a Diablo 2 ladder season reset on June 22nd. The ladder is getting reset.
And that is, I should note, that is not Diablo 2 Resurrected.
Nope, it's straight up Diablo 2.
Mm-hmm.
It's straight up Diablo 2.
That game is still kicking all these years later, everybody.
Which is, so wild to me.
It's hopeful for you Diablo 3 players who want to keep playing that. Quite frankly, there you go. You have hope. Diablo games don't die. Just like Diablo. Diablo games don't die. They never, even the original Diablo is available if you want to play it. It's still out there. So yeah.
I mean, I still have Diablo 2 sitting on, even though I have the Resurrected. Directly next to me, in my hand right now, as I'm grabbing this, is the Diablo skull with the Soul Stone USB drive that came with Diablo 3 Collector's Edition that had Diablo 2 on it.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it did.
That never leaves my computer. That has been on my computer since Diablo 3 Collectors came out. I have lost the key for it, which I can't install the original one without the key and play it because Blizzard didn't have it on battle.net before that. But at least I have Resurrected. But yeah.
In addition to that, which is happening on the 22nd, we've also got right now Phase 3 Wrath Classic is live. It's live right now. And on Thursday, which I think is kind of odd, but on Thursday, Trial of the Crusader on the 22nd of June is going to live. It's not live right now. It will be live in 2 days. I don't understand that.
That is a weird day to go live. Huh.
Yeah. But that's for Wrath Classic. There's also some server transfer stuff happening, but quite frankly, I couldn't find anything that was consistent about what was happening, so I did not know how to explain it. And thus, I'm just mentioning it. If people want to, chime up in chat and tell us what they've heard, that would be great. But we are now Wrath Classic. Right now, they're on Phase 3, and the Trial of the Crusader raid opens in 2 days. And now I feel like we've done at least a fair amount of talking about other things Diablo 4. So we can take a breath, relax, and now go on and on and on about Diablo 4.
Let's go.
First up is there's a lot of kerfuffle about the seasons and the way they're going to play out. And stuff is changing, and people keep clarifying things, and Liz corrected me at least once on something I had said because I misunderstood it. So we're going to go over all this. And well, go ahead, Liz.
You misunderstood it, but I think even the developers kind of misunderstand it because during the live stream they did last week where they talked about it, they gave two different answers. One at the beginning of the live stream that was completely different from the second answer they gave at the end of the live stream. So yeah. I think it's just confusing and it's been changing.
Yeah, they've been making decisions and ideas about what they're going to do for the season throughout this launch period. They have been making refinements to what they're going to do. So brief overview: when the season comes, which is I believe at this point it's next month. It's in July, right?
Mid to late July. They've said that.
When it comes, in order to do the season stuff, you need to create a new character. You have, just like in Diablo 3, when you wanted to see the season stuff, you had to make a new character. That's not totally surprising. The somewhat surprising part is that the new story content, you will have to make a seasonal character to see it. Mm-hmm. So in order to do that stuff, so the character you're leveling on in Diablo 3 right now will not be able to see that. They will not get it. You'll have to create a seasonal character in order to see that story stuff. I don't think everybody expected that.
No.
Quite a few people are surprised and upset about that. I'll be upfront. I didn't expect it. I'm not upset, but I wasn't expecting that. I thought that season story stuff would basically be given to everybody. I don't know why I thought that. I just did. But they've gone straight to Rod Ferguson and a reporter from Forbes went straight to him on Twitter and said, "Hey, can you clarify this?" And he goes, "Yes." And he said it's going to be a season, just like in Diablo 3. In order to see the new content, you will need a seasonal character. But there's some light at the end of the tunnel here for people who are like, "Oh my God, I can't do this again in less than a month." First up, there's going to be bonuses to leveling for seasoned characters if you've got a character already. If I'm not completely misunderstanding what I read. Either of you, have you read similar to that? There will be bonuses to leveling for a season.
That's what
Are you
it's
talking about renown?
Not renown specifically, just leveling, but we will talk about renown in a
Okay,
second.
then I don't know about that. I have not heard that.
Okay, Joe, have you?
I do know that if you've finished the campaign, you can just skip the campaign in the season. But if you haven't finished the campaign, you cannot skip the campaign in the season and get straight to the new stuff. Yeah.
Although I'll be quite upfront with you, I am not skipping the campaign. That is a terrible.
I think the campaign is great, so
there's no way.
I think they're I think they're inferring that they're going to. I don't think they've outright said it about the leveling, but it's one of those things where I think if they don't put a bonus to leveling, they're going to get a lot of blowback. Like that's going to turn a lot of players off of seasons, right? And that's going to turn a lot of players off from experiencing that content because, I mean, don't get me wrong, I really love Diablo. I'm having a blast in it, but there's a lot of stuff to do. There's a lot of stuff to do even when you are max level. Some people aren't even done with the campaign right now. Some people are still making their way through finding all the things, doing all the dungeons, unlocking all the aspects, unlocking the world tiers. There's so much to do on one character that the idea of starting another character just to experience the seasonal story stuff might be a step too far for them.
Yeah, I can see that. Now we are going to talk about the renowned stuff because it's changed a couple of times and because Liz knows it. So Liz, do you mind talking about it?
Liz also sounded like she was going to say something else.
Oh, okay.
I feel like there's this weird culture clash in Diablo 4 where Diablo has always been an ARPG where, you know, the whole point is going in and smashing monsters and going in and smashing monsters and then I'm going to go in and smash more monsters. And you know, Diablo 2 and Diablo 3 both had these seasonal models, and the whole point of them was you make a new character, you go through with these new kinds of gameplay, and you start all over, you race up the leaderboards. That has been the Diablo model. Except, you know, Diablo 4 is simultaneously following that classic ARPG model that they've been doing for a couple games now, but it also, they've like added this really great single player or multiplayer, if you want, RPG to it. So I think you have some people coming in from Diablo who are like, yeah, this is how seasons work. I know how seasons work. Don't you know how seasons work? But you get these more RPG players or MMO players that are in here. And this sounds really weird. Like if you were a World of Warcraft player coming into this and you're like, okay, well, they're going to release a new patch that's going to be a new season. And wait, I have to re-roll my character and start from scratch?
I think
we would lose our minds.
I think it's also like they've done so much to incentivize caring about your character at this point, which is a good thing in my opinion. Like it's not a bad thing by any stretch of the imagination that like it can be daunting to like have that, well, understand that this is how seasons worked in Diablo 3. This is different than Diablo 3 in a lot of ways, because in Diablo 3, you rolled a character, you got it to max, all you did was continue to level Paragon levels and maybe collect loot. There was nothing else, so rolling another character to experience seasons wasn't really that big of a deal. Here, though, because you're incentivized to, you know, craft gear, craft your specs, go through and do all that stuff, unlock everything, find everything, do everything, and having so many different ways to play your character, because that was the other thing, like Diablo 3, you really didn't have a whole lot of like builds. In the time the Diablo 4 is released, for just Druid Bear, I have seen 15 viable builds, all wildly different.
We all know that I'm not like Captain Theory Crafter, but in the time that I've been leveling this character, I came up with 3 different build strategies that were all working, and I ended up switching them not because they weren't working, but because I just wanted to do something else. Like, do you remember back when, this is an old Penny Arcade strip, when Mass Effect first came out, they were like, BioWare's like, you know, we've made this ocean for you, it is vast and deep, now swim forever. How do I swim? Swim! It's kind of like that, where a lot of the stuff doesn't explain itself to you.
Yeah, like, but it incentivizes you learning it and figuring it out and spending the time.
I don't have a problem with it. I'm just saying.
No, it's a good thing.
There's all this stuff out there that doesn't explain itself to you, so you're discovering it. Like, I just figured out that nightmare dungeons were a really good way to level up my glyphs. Like 2 days ago. Yeah.
The only way to level them, in
Yeah.
fact.
And I just found that out because I hadn't been doing them because there was so much other stuff to do. And that's the kind of thing where you're telling people, okay, you've got till July to get all that done and then start over and do it again. And I do think like there's a lot of people who are not going to be up for, I think even people who played Diablo 2 and 3 and know how seasons work and know how the reset works are going to be a lot less interested in doing it this time.
I mean, even I'm sitting there kind of going, a little bit at it, right?
So, but I do want to talk about the Renown stuff because there's been some back and forth on it and some misunderstanding on it. And Liz was the one who corrected me, so I'm going to turn to Liz and say, do you want to like explain to people how Renown's going to work with the season?
So yeah, we have gotten some mixed messages, and I'm going to explain this, but I have some things to say about how they're communicating this stuff. Basically, when you start a seasonal character, you will have all of the Shrines of Lilith that you collected on your main characters, and you will have all of the explored map that you have on your main characters. All of that will be immediately available to you, and you will have the amount of renown you gained for doing those things, which will take you up to renown level 2. So if you've done all of this stuff on your main character, it will also be on your new seasonal character. But if you want to get all the way up to Renown 5 to get those bonus Paragon points, or up to Renown 3 and get those bonus skill points, you will need to do that grind again, which is, that sounds a little exhausting to me. I guess it's not as bad as like a WoW reputation grind, but it did take some concentrated time and effort to get there on my part. And the Diablo team said this in a live stream they did last week, and they never made a blog post summarizing what was in the live stream or a news update or anything like that saying that. And during the live stream, Rob Ferguson was talking about how he would prefer doing live streams to writing like really long blog posts. And I'm thinking, I don't know if this is the best way to communicate information, because not everyone has time to listen to an hour and a half live stream and convert that information into what's important to them.
Yeah,
and
that's a big ask.
Yeah, it's hard for us even, and we're the ones here paying attention to this like all the time.
Mm-hmm.
We three super care about Diablo, and it's hard for us to keep it straight because there's no reference except for a bunch of different blog posts about it, which say slightly different things because everyone heard this and heard slightly different things because Blizzard didn't specifically write down what was happening in clear language so that we could know.
Yeah.
So I hope we start to get a few more blog posts. The live streams are fun, but I would like to see a written copy of what you actually mean.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where, like Liz pointed out, that if they say something at the beginning of the live stream and then something different about the same subject at the end of the live stream, it leaves you like going, what? And if it's written down, usually someone will come along and read it and say, hey, wait a minute, we said this and then we said this. Which one is it? I remember a discussion we had going back, a few years ago now, where we were talking about, we were talking about something they had said for Dragonflight, and each of us thought it was going to be something different, and each of us had sources for why we thought it was going to be something different.
Yeah.
So we were like, which is it? And I remember Liz saying, we're not saying anything until we know what it is. Yeah.
I don't think you can if you aren't sure.
Yeah, and we just couldn't be sure. There was enough stuff in contradiction. Like, I remember you told me what it was, and I said, but this says this, and you went and looked at it and said, well, that does say this, but this says this. And I went and looked at that and goes, then I have no idea what to say here. It's not like I remember even tweeting at them saying, hey, could you clarify this? Which is it? And I didn't get a response. Because I don't write for Forbes, I guess. But yeah, it just was one of those things that it stuck with me, and it is something that is live streams as disseminators have a lot of advantages, including immediacy, including getting players to actually hear the developers, to hear how excited they are, to see what they're really looking forward to showing you. But the downside is that they are live streams. They are not curated very well by their nature. There might be somebody there trying to rein it in, but it's a live stream. If you accidentally say something, you make a verbal boo-boo, there's nothing that can be done. And if you say one thing at the beginning and one thing at the end, you can't really go back. Like it's happening. So I do think that it would be better if I hope they don't give up on, nice concise, here is what we're doing and written
Yeah.
down. Because that does have a lot of advantages that I don't want to. I do also want to talk about something else, Diablo 4 before we talk about Diablo 4 in a more general way. I feel like we can have a little roundup here because we're all playing it. But the interesting thing here was the Fury Against Fate quest is bugged in Diablo 4. I've done this quest. I've actually completed it. Have either of you guys done it?
I don't
Which
remember.
quest is this?
It's the one where it's the one where you hook up with the Crane clan barbarians and find out their story.
I have done that. Yes,
Yeah.
I have not done that yet.
I believe I finished it, unless there's another part.
Well, what happens is you'd know if you hadn't finished it because you get to the penultimate quest and the head of the Crane clan gives this really stirring speech and then goes, kill him, and runs off to kill him. And if she didn't do that, you'd notice because you'd just be standing around going, okay, quest isn't finishing. Are we going to go kill guys or what? That's the bug right now. And so I finished it, so I didn't know it was bugged. But a lot of people are super upset because they've tried all the usual workarounds that people are trying in Diablo 4. Whenever, I'm sure you've both done this. If you've had anything stall out or just for some reason doesn't seem to be changing, you log out, count to 10, log back in. Usually it fixes. Yeah, that's what I've been doing. Joe, have you had to do that at all?
Yes, I have had to do that a couple times with the different quests.
Yeah, that's not working. The thing where you switch to a different character isn't working. The thing where you form a group and the leader of the group basically logs themselves off and then back on and then kicks everybody, that isn't working. There's other workarounds that have not been worked. Basically, this quest is just really bugged if it's bugged. Like, if you get the bugged part, it just doesn't go. And a lot of people the two articles I've seen about it. One was on Wowhead, and I forget where the other one was, but they both basically said you just wait for Blizzard to fix it. And I kind of have to agree, but it's hard for me to say that to people because I know how it feels.
Yeah.
But at least it's not a main quest. It's not a main story quest. It's just a nice side quest if you want to experience a little bit more of Diablo's story. Which is something I absolutely love in this expansion, that you can experience the game's story in different ways. That isn't just the campaign, although I do love the campaign. I think the campaign's great. In fact, talking about seasons, that's one of the things I really want them to do is let you take your character that you've been playing like outside of seasons and turn them back to a level 1 character.
So
I wouldn't
like
do that
with seasonal rebirth like in Diablo 3?
Yeah, because I did that all the time in Diablo 3. I wouldn't do that with my main character, but I've got like 4 alts who haven't gotten to any high level yet, other than like one's at level 30, I think the highest. Just do one of them. Like, boom, okay, you're gone. I think that would be really cool. I would like them to make that part of the thing. I don't know that if they're going to. In fact, I doubt they are. But yeah, let's now do whatever. Like, I want to let you guys talk about whatever you want to talk about with Diablo 4. I'm gonna throw it to Liz first.
Well, this is such an open-ended assignment you've given me, Matt.
I'm sorry. You need time. If you need time, I can go, or I can have Joe go.
Well, I've just tuned into World Tier 4 on my part, and one of the things that I found interesting while leveling up through Diablo 4 is that like each time you hit a new world tier, there's just like this big like bumpy part. When going from 2 to 3, you just like you went in and you just you got whomped just constantly all the time, because World Tier 3 kind of assumes you're going to have World Tier 3 gear in order to survive. And in that beginning, it's like, oh, no, this is bad. Ow, ow, ow. And so far, World Tier 4 feels very similar, where I am going in and I'm getting the heck beaten out of me, and I need to gear up, but you have to gear up through all of this pain and death and being murdered by demons.
Yeah.
And one thing I'm hearing a lot about necromancers, which is me, is that in these higher difficulty levels, your minions do not survive. So if you're running a minion heavy build, you're kind of hitting World Tier 4 and you have to rethink a lot. I haven't gotten into content where I found that's too bad yet. It's worse than it was, but not too bad. But I'm just thinking it's interesting that you hit these big speed bumps at these difficulty levels. And one thing about Diablo 4 is there are only 4 difficulty levels.
Yeah.
For now,
It kind of feels like you need some more difficulty levels between these levels, both so you can kind of make that like speed bump a little gentler on people. Like, oh, you can jump into this, and then you jump into that, and then you jump into this. And also, so you keep some challenge, because at the end of like World Tier 3, before I jumped into 4, it was feeling very easy. It felt like there was very little to challenge me. I was running nightmare dungeons that were 4 or 5 or 6 levels above me, and it's like, okay, this is no big deal. And it felt like I needed to go up to the next tier, but I was too low to do the capstone dungeon to get to the next tier, and the next tier would probably beat the heck out of me, which it's doing even right now. And what do y'all think? Do you feel like 4 difficulty levels is appropriate? Is it too much? Is it too little?
I am convinced there will be more.
I hope there will be.
So interestingly enough, there's a weird... I was having this discussion in all places in a Twitch stream on one of the front page streamers pages earlier today, because I was watching, just trying to get my drops because it's Druid stuff. I need my Druid stuff. And that actually came up as a topic of conversation of how do you, where's the challenge in the game? Is affixes the challenge? Is adding more difficulty necessary? And I don't know. I think personally, there needs to be more difficulty added, because the jump from 2 to 3 is fairly severe, and the jump from 3 to 4 is fairly severe. And because it's a Diablo game, and a lot of your stuff, even though you can get Paragon levels and that does lessen, and even though you can go get all of the Lilith statues, which I have not done yet because I'm terrible, and get a whole bunch of bonus stats and Paragon abilities and levels and stuff like that, and that lessens that barrier a little bit, it's still relying on gear. And if you're in my situation where I get drops, they just happen to be barbarian drops.
The game is telling you something, Joe. Why are you not listening?
I like my bear. Listen, I can rampage and trample forward, and then a wave of earth follows me. And the tornadoes...
I saw that the other day. It was really interesting.
Tornadoes come from this earth, and then lightning strikes from this earth. Why would I want to play a barbarian when I can just be a bear that runs around going, Rah! I mean, barbarians do that too, but still.
I'll give you one reason why. Because I can run into a group, yell at them, explode in flames, and start one-shot killing them. And every time I one-shot kill something, I explode in flames again. It's a lot of fun. But
I do that too, just with wind.
But going on with what you're saying, I do want to mention something that I've noticed in this front. If you are keeping up on the occultist, you make sure to grind as much as you can. You don't spend a lot of gold. When you hit these transition points, they can be smoothed out a lot if you can. When the ancient rares start dropping, and they start dropping, you don't have to put them on as rares. You can go to the occultist and turn them into legendary pieces with the same affixes as the legendary pieces you have, and then continue with your playstyle and notice a huge jump of power. Like on this character, I have a pair of legs on this character which are item power 778. My previous ones were 700. Like that's how big that jump is. I've got boots with like a 50 item power jump. The weapon I got is the lowest with only a 38 item power jump, but still that's a big jump. And I'm noticing it for a lot of gear. Like as I'm going through stuff, like I took it easy. Like I actually said to myself, Matt, don't try and do, after I got run over by like a group of like just, random trash skeletons. I said, don't try and do the thing you usually do. Don't try and just go charge into a dungeon and wipe it out. You're not going to be able to. Just do some questing and get some stuff to drop. And I was looking through my bags and going, oh, nothing good drop. But then I looked at the yellows and I'm like, I'm saying this to every player who's making this transition.
This is such a huge thing. Yeah. Look at your yellows. Sometimes even your blues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If your blue is high enough item power, consider it. I know it's only a blue ring, but it's item power 800. Yeah, the bonuses it gives you will be substantial. And like that's the other thing that's not laid out very clearly here is that like you're hitting the nail on the head, and this is I think really important. But like you look for stats too. Like it's counterintuitive, but as a druid, I want willpower. Right, like all of my crit stuff, all of my ultimate skill overpower stuff, all of my extra damage from being fortitude or fortified stuff, all of that triggers off of willpower, and nothing explains that to you. And
all the things that drop, none of it has willpower, and at least the legendaries. But when you start looking at like the blues and the yellows, and you start noticing, oh, that's a ton of willpower and a ton of item level, the game really wants you to go to dungeons, unlock the aspects, break down at the occultist the aspects from legendaries, slap them on something else, and then go on with your life. But nothing explains that to you. You get the quest to go learn how to do the thing, but it doesn't tell you, hey, you've had 3 games prior to this, 4 games prior to this, of wanting that shiny orange bar, like name thing on your screen. That's the most important thing. If it's green, it's even better. If it's yellow or the pale gold, it's the best. And then instead, you need to look at the lower gear stuff that you're so used to just selling or doing everything, like junking, essentially. Like the minute you start changing that attitude, you escalate so quickly. But even then, I think there's still room to fine tune the difficulty.
Oh, absolutely. And I totally agree with both of you on this front, which is fairly rare for all 3 of us to be in this record. But I will say this, that's why I think there will be other difficulty levels. Because this game is intending for you to play it for a long time.
Yeah.
And I am getting the sense I will be playing it for a long time. But when I get to item level 100, I don't know not item level 100. When I get to level 100, I have no idea what could stand against me. I'm doing okay now at 70.
Yeah.
So once you get, get over
heck,
that bump.
I did the capstone dungeon for unlocking World Tier 3 at 42.
Yeah, it was quite possible. I mean, it was painful for some classes, but it was possible.
Liz?
I just waited to do it. Oh, go ahead, Liz.
Like you're doing World Tier 1 and World Tier 2 between level 1 and level 50. You do World Tier 3 from level 50 to level 70. And then you have World Tier 4. That's all you got from level 70 to level 100. Yeah. So we're stuck here for 30 levels.
And people have
nothing new to challenge us.
And people have been getting to 100. Like, it may sound crazy to you guys, but some people got to 100 the first week. Like, they actually did what was supposed to take 100 hours. They did it in a week, which meant they didn't sleep a whole heck of a lot. People are already there. There are people who are at this point just steamrolling. This is why I think there will be difficulty bumps. I think there will almost certainly be more torment levels. They're just going to steal that mechanic from Diablo 3 because
smart.
Trying to do the Diablo 2 thing worked fine for the first couple of months of this game. It'll work fine, but eventually you're just gonna need more.
How long till they start stealing Mythic plus keys?
I think they've already kind of got those with
that's basically Nightmare Dungeons.
Yeah, Nightmare Dungeons are that. That they even get. I mean, when you do
because the affix is there, right?
Yeah,
the affixes are there, and they actually have affixes that are good for you and bad for you.
Mostly bad.
Mostly bad.
But yeah.
There was one that added physical damage, which was I'm sitting there going, "Oh my, you're seriously adding 10% to my physical damage," and things did melt. I remember I got into a really weird chain of running Cultist Refuge and Kol Draga, where I would run Kol Draga and they would give me the next tier in Cultist Refuge. So I'd go to Cultist Refuge and do that at that tier, and they would give me the Kol Draga key at the next level. So I got up to like Kol Draga 5 and Cultist Refuge 6, just back and forth between the two of them, because they just kept dropping the next key. Like, here's the next one. And I was just like, this isn't supposed to happen. And then it stopped happening and I had to go to the dungeon. But yeah, it is there. Go ahead, Liz.
One useful thing that we did get from that live stream last week was that they are working on Nightmare Dungeons, because right now they aren't, they help you upgrade your glyphs, but they aren't really that much more rewarding than just running normal dungeons. And they're definitely different. Yeah. Yes, glyphs are like it. And they're planning to upgrade the experience you get from Nightmare Dungeons and let you teleport to the Nightmare Dungeon just using the sigil that you use to activate it, so that you do not have travel time between them that really slows down your advancement, because some of those are really far apart and not all dungeons are close to a waypoint.
Yeah, if you get a key to a dungeon like the capstone dungeon for Torment, I forget the name, like Fallen Temple. It's the big Triune Temple. First off, the thing is huge. The thing is huge inside. So anything to cut down on the travel time. But also with the key, it wasn't clear that I wasn't clear when I got there. Do I just go in to unlock it, or do I have to do something?
Again, that explaining what you should be doing thing.
Yeah. With the sigils, also, I'll say this. Liz, the first time you did a sigil, did you know you had to do anything to it to get it to activate the dungeon, or did you just think having it would activate the dungeon?
I did not just think having it would activate the dungeon, because when I started doing nightmare dungeons, I had like 8 in my inventory, so I figured I probably had to do something with them.
Yeah, I kept looking for a sconce inside the dungeon to put it in, for like 5 minutes, and then
we're used to Mythic Plus, and it's not like that. You click the sigil in your inventory, and then it activates it, and you zone in.
Yeah. All right. I feel like we've probably got a good place here to stop and try and do a couple of the questions we have.
Questions.
Unless you guys want to talk more about
questions?
Diablo 4. We have 3. Well, one of them is not really a question; it's just someone telling us something, but it's a nice thing to be told. So, you both ready to go?
Yeet.
Yeah.
Alrighty. If you have questions for the show, as always, you can email us. Please do. Although Joe is going to be thanking you all because you sent quite a few Lore Watch questions in, and that's cool. But for us,
one more week, you got to wait. One more week. That's it.
For our show, it's podcast at blizzardwatch.com with the subject line podcast or Blizzard Watch, so we know it's for this show. Or if you don't want to use email for whatever reason, you can go to Discord. If you are a Patreon supporter, you can use the patron Q and podcast questions channel, because the patrons help us continue to do this thing. So we like to give them first crack on questions. But if you're not a supporter, if that's fine. You're still supporting us by listening to our stuff, asking us questions, engaging with us. That's huge. That helps a lot. You can use the Q and podcast questions channel. It's below it. It's non-patron. You can get in there and you can ask your questions. We look in both. This week I looked in both. Also, sometimes y'all send me tweets and stuff, which I used this week. I don't usually use them that much because I have so many other options. But if you just want to tweet at me, I will look at it. I mean, I'm human. I look at my tweets occasionally, much less now. So yeah, those are the various ways you can reach us. I guess passenger pigeons, or if you happen to know a shadowy assassin who can teleport into our rooms and just give us the questions, that's technically okay. I don't encourage the shadowy assassins. Quite frankly, I'm sensitive to be surprised. But anyway, first one is from Tetsemi. Question for Blizzard Watch Podcast: which comes first to WoW? Playable Khajiit body type, Elder Scrolls Online, or playable Centaur body type? My vote would be something using the Worgen frame, but cat instead of dog, like the Saberon. Although we do have both the Centaur this expansion, as well as the Tol'vir from Uldum. What do you guys think?
If we get either of these before we get Tuskar, I riot.
Okay. Let's go with...
I was going to say Arakoa. Where's the Arakoa on this?
We do know that they are fully rigged, right? Like, we know that they're fully animated now. They have almost all the player animations.
Let's stop and go back and really approach this from which one would you like the most angle. What have you always been surprised hasn't come to WoW already, or if wanted to come to WoW since you saw them? I know what Joe's going to say, but I'm still going to let him say it. Go ahead, Joe.
Well, no, if you're talking about races and things like that outside of WoW that I'm surprised haven't found an analog in WoW, then cat people really is the thing, because we have Saberon, but it hasn't really been fully explored. So that is actually a really good one.
I'm going to ask you a question, Joe. When have they been any explored? They're there. That's all I know about them.
Well, that's what I mean. We dealt with them a little bit in War Dads.
Yeah, the boys trip out.
Well, I will always call it War Dads. I still call Shadowland Shadow Dads. But we dealt with them there, but that's it. And in the Battle for Azeroth, Maghar alternate Draenor, some of the Saberon were caught in Etrig's teleportation spell and then ran off from Durotar towards the Northern Barrens. I remember that much. But we really haven't done a whole lot with them. I'd like to see more with it. But and we got our Naga race, and not just True Naga, but we got our Snake People race, our Yanti. I've been looking for something like that. We got our Dragonborn analog at this point. I mean, outside of anthropomorphic hamsters, I really can't think of anything else that I've seen out there that we haven't had. We've got cyborgs even at this point. Like, we have a smattering of everything. But I still want my walrus people. Liz?
I mean, we've seen all of these racial types. We haven't had them playable. It feels like it's been a while since Blizzard has added. Well, obviously, we got the Drakthir this expansion, so I shouldn't say that. But we're getting a lot more allied races and fewer new unique races. So I wonder, are we just going to keep getting more allied races, and are we just not going to get more races like this? Because obviously, the Tuskar would be an amazing fit for this expansion, but we did not get playable Tuskar. We have these great Tuskar characters, but we can't be one of them. So is this, are they just dialing back on new races? It's like we have this one race, which is the standout race of the expansion, and that's like it.
I don't know. Like, I'm really curious about that. Matt, what do you think?
I've been on record as saying that I was disappointed that the Drakthir we got were all the spindly caster types. Not that they are a caster race because they all play a caster class. However, we know at some point they're at least thinking about letting them do other classes. And when they do, I'm sorry, I really want the chonky Draconid model that we got in Dragonflight. I want that as a playable race. I think it looks badass. I like it. There it is. I would love to see that. Obviously, I want Vrykul, and I've wanted Vrykul forever. I wanted ogres for a very long time because I wanted the ogres from Battle for Azeroth, not Battle for Azeroth, War Dads, Warlords of Draenor. I wanted those because they had an empire and they weren't just me crush you, but they were like, okay, I am going to crush you now.
You know what?
Go ahead.
What was the primals? What was their offshoot in the dungeon? I can't remember what they were called. Plant people.
The plant people. Oh yeah, the Batani.
Yeah, the Batani. We've seen them a few times, and we've seen some of the effects of their conversion, like as recently as whatchamacallit? Why can't it Legion? Like when we were going through Suramar, there's a whole section about that, and like what happens when that happens. Like elves get infected with it, so to speak. But like that's one that they haven't really talked about outside of the us beating them up on alternate Draenor. And because I'm thinking about like every other real classic fantasy race that I can think of has been represented in WoW in some capacity already. Like we've got gnolls, we've got demonic-ish adjacent people. Like somebody once mentioned Oni, but I'm looking at Mogu and I'm like, they're pretty close to it.
I mean, Draenei basically look and act like both the demon people. What are they called? My God, tieflings.
Yep.
They look like tieflings and they act like Aasimar. And they have the power set of an Aasimar.
We've got our undeads. We've got our partial demons because we've got the blood elf, the demon hunters essentially, which essentially count. You have your trolls. You have your dwarves. You have your halflings / hobbits. You have your dragon people. The only thing that it really is underrepresented maybe are like ogres / giants, but you've got your gnomes. You don't have fairies, but you have elves. We just literally had vampire people in the last expansion.
You've got the keepers of the grove and the dryads.
But
they're kind of fairy adjacent.
They are kind of fairy adjacent, but I would also put them closer to centaur.
I mean, they're in that group too.
Yeah. So like you have pretty much everything covered already. So like it's really hard to add another thing. At this point, it's just which ones become playable characters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But you definitely could branch away from yet another humanoid group if you wanted to. You could throw in, cat people, or for that matter, you mentioned Naga already, or the walking serpent people from BFA, the ones you basically only really see in one of the horde zones. But they're they have a dungeon. You could definitely do more of that. Anyway, Tet Semi, we don't have the slightest idea which comes first, if any of it ever comes. For that matter. We're going to move on to the next question. This one's from Steve Lamson. He directly sent it to me. He didn't say anything about Lore Watch for it. It is more of a Lore Watch question.
Oh, you're fine. I'm not going to make a deal out of it.
I'm stealing it anyway. Are the demons in the Diablo world like those in Warcraft in that, on Sanctuary at least, they can never be truly killed? Do they have to be killed in a certain plane for it to be fully permanent? I have my ideas on this, but I'm going to let Joe and then Liz talk.
Plane doesn't matter. It's the power that kills it that matters. If something like a Nephilim, a fully powered Nephilim, destroys an angel or a demon, that angel or demon is probably destroyed or rewritten out of existence. But angels and demons are specifically set up in such a way that when an angel dies, it goes back to the Crystal Arch and it's reborn in some capacity. Whether it's the same angel or another one, up for debate. But like, there's a whole thing about being reborn through the Crystal Arches. Demons go through much the same thing. We literally are going through that when you're going through the Diablo 4 storyline. Demons can die in hell and still be reborn. We literally did this to Diablo. We murdered him in hell and he came back. Like, this is a thing that can happen. But we, at the time, are not Nephilim. We are not fully powered. Diablo 4 starts really putting that in perspective, and I don't want to ruin anything. Play through the campaign, and I think you get a better idea about that. And now I'm going to shut up.
Liz?
I have no idea. I'm not a lore person. I'm
just without spoiling the story of Diablo 4, what you've seen in Diablo 4, what would it make you say to this question? What would you answer based on that?
I mean, I definitely, you have demons if you kill them in Sanctuary, and we've seen this repeatedly. They just go back to hell, and you start all over, which is the whole reason we keep going back to Soul Stones, which just lock demons away and always, 100% of the time, fail in horribly catastrophic ways. But it's because we don't entirely know how to beat them. We don't have a way. So we keep trying to imprison them, and it keeps not working, but it's like, it's the best we got, guys. This is all we can do.
Until someone comes up with something else, we're going to have to fall back on the put it in a box category. But the box is not well shielded. Yeah, I know. All we got is the box. Sorry. We're like the Ghostbusters. If it doesn't go in a proton trap, they don't have anything. I will say this for my answer. First off, it's even more complicated than it's already been revealed to be by Joe and Liz here, in that, here's one example. He is an angel, but it's still worth mentioning. Tyrael blew up the World Stone, and it blew him up. The explosion was so powerful that it wiped him out of existence. He didn't go back to the Crystal Arch. Through sheer force of will, he kept himself in that spot for the 20 years it took him to rebuild his body. He was that mad. So there's no reason a demon couldn't. And angels and demons are slightly different anyway, in that if you kill a demon, they tend to come back exactly like they were. You kill an angel, you get a new angel who is the same concept, but isn't the same being.
You can't kill Hope, but it might not be Oriel.
Yeah. The next time, when Malthael eventually walks out of that thing, it won't be Malthael anymore. Which is why Tyrael resisted doing it, because he didn't want to be somebody else. He wanted to be Tyrael. He knew that a new angel of justice wasn't going to take what he'd already learned so seriously, not right away. And with an Imperius right there, he might not have been educated properly. So he was like, no. Now, looking at Diablo and the other demons, we've definitely seen. The problem is that when the Nephilim kills Diablo in Diablo 3, it's kind of a loophole because he gets pulled into the Black Soul Stone.
Yeah.
As long as the Black Soul Stone existed, they all got pulled into it. Once the Malthael destroyed the Black Soul Stone, all of them got sent back to their plane of origin. That's just as far as we know, as of right now, that is the story. I mean, if something comes up and we find out something different,
we're going to be talking about this on this week's Lore Watch. Yeah. Just saying.
But there's right now, that is the basic assumption. We know at least 2 of the lesser evils are around, and we know that at least one of the prime evils is around. Like that much we know. We don't know for sure about Baal or Diablo or Belial or Esbada. We don't know what they're up to. We haven't heard anything about them.
We know that they're at least in the world enough to affect it in some capacity. Yes, the story tells us that. There's a quest where things happen, and you know that they're responding. So I think it comes right down to what Lorath says right near the beginning of this. Not really. I guess it's like Act 3. Evil doesn't die. It's like these things are manifestations of evil. Evil doesn't die. You can't kill evil. You can only oppose it. You can't destroy it. You can't wipe it out. There's a reason the eternal conflict is the eternal conflict.
Yeah, these beings don't go anywhere. It isn't in their nature to. But that doesn't mean they can't be afraid. That doesn't mean that somebody else couldn't replace them. Also, which is something else that I think we were talking about on the Lore Watch, because that's an interesting concept. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got to say on that one.
Also,
so go ahead, Liz.
like, the evils kind of represent concepts. Diablo is terror. Mephisto is hate. Baal is destruction. You can't kill these concepts. You can't
in the same way that the angelic council, right? You have hope, justice.
Exactly.
You have all of these concepts that are core concepts.
Yeah, you can't stab destruction to death. You can't, you can't make valor suddenly not exist unless there's no valor in the universe.
The whole point of it is, like, these are all aspects of a complete being. And, like, that's something to always remember when you're dealing with Diablo lore in any capacity. Like, angels and demons, they're all born from aspects of one divine being that split itself in twain and then killed itself, essentially, splitting itself even further. Like, jam them all together, they're one complete essence, one complete being. And all of their essences, all of their concepts are represented in us. Every single one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So...
yeah. That is a good way to look at it. The last one is from Atane, and Atane basically just says, leafy rock dinosaurs, dollars for donuts, the Emerald Dream will have leafy rock dinosaurs, and sends us a picture of leafy rock dinosaurs.
It's a little leafy rock trihorn. I'm so happy.
Yeah. It is very, 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 very bleeping cute.
A 10 out of 10 tweet would look at again. Thank you.
Yeah, there's no discussion to be had. They're cute dinosaurs.
Let's be honest. At this point, like, our audience knows what we like.
But that basically wraps up the show. Either of you guys have any final thoughts you want to do before we move into the Joe spiel and me seeing this out?
No,
I got nothing. Except for this. Blizzard Watch is made possible due to generous contributions at patreon.com/BlizzardWatch. Your continued support means that this podcast signing community is able to thrive and grow. Blizzard Watch supporters enjoy exclusive benefits like early access to the podcast, better chance at having your question answered on our podcast with a queue, and an ads-free site experience.
Thank you very much, Joe. And thank you for Liz for, as always, writing the events thing, so I didn't have to. I did throw a few other things in there, but, still, Liz does that every week, and it's very helpful. And I don't always thank her, so now I am. And go ahead.
Thank you, Matt, for always doing our weekly email with topics, because that is also very helpful.
Yeah, if we don't do these things, we don't have a show. I guess we could just show up and start rambling, but trust me, you don't want a full hour of that.
They get that every week on Lore Watch.
Yeah.
Even Lore Watch has structure. It isn't much structure, but it's there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. You two try despite my best efforts to take that structure away. Just saying.
Yeah,
there's so much to talk about.
But yeah, I'm going to throw that in here. We're doing the last of our Diablo. Well, hopefully the last of our.
No,
Diablo
this is going to be the
lore.
last one of this one for Diablo 4. The parody of having 4 episodes of Diablo 4 lore, I can't pass that up.
Yeah, so we're basically doing the Act 6 and the I want to say epilogue, although it's not really an epilogue so much as a prologue to what's coming. That's going to be this weekend. We're going to record it. It'll be live on the site next week. If you have not listened to our current the 3 Diablo 4 lore podcast we have with both Joseph, myself, and Liz. Liz comes on for these because Liz is actually investing in the lore for a game for once, and we're all super excited about this. Yeah, you should catch those. You should definitely listen to those. Anyway, that's the show. This has been the Blizzard Watch podcast. If you have a question for the show, you can use our Discord channel, the Patreon Q and Podcast Questions channel, or the Q and Podcast Questions channel for non-patrons, or you can email us at podcast@blizzardwatch.com with the subject line podcast of Blizzard Watch, so we know it's for the show. Thank you guys so much for being here. This has been the Blizzard Watch podcast, and we'll be back next week.